how can you set up end-to-end testing with Playwright and Resend to ensure that all your emails will function exactly as you expect? Let's get started by creating our endpoint that will actually send the email. With our API key set, let's go ahead and instantiate a new Resend instance. Next, because this is a GET route, let's just export an async function. Let's await resend.emails.send, and then we'll pass along an object that has everything we need. Now, to save you a little bit of time, I'll just copy this over from the docs. Now, obviously, we'd probably want to send this from our own custom domain, but right now, we'll just keep it at this testing stage. Now that we have the call working, it's time to write a test spec file. We've got two options here, and I'll show you one after the other. So let's start by installing Playwright. Secondly, inside of that app.spec.ts file, let's import both test and expect from Playwright test. In the async call, we'll pass along the page, and we'll use the page.goto method to hit our endpoint that we just created. Then we'll use the expect method, where at the page here, we're expecting to get an ID back from that endpoint. So let's look at that second option as well. So for option 2 here, we want to mock a response, which allows us to test our own app flow without calling the Resend API and impacting the sending quota we have on our account. Now, once again, we'll destructure the page, and then we're going to simply JSON.stringify the data we should receive back. So instead of actually hitting the route, what we'll do is we'll mock the API call before navigating. So here I'll use the page.route method, where I'll pass in the send endpoint, and then we'll define what happens when we hit that route. Now, for this to actually work, we still need to write our Playwright config. Let me go ahead and paste in this config, and then we'll walk through it slowly. First of all, the test directory is the directory that contains your test files. So notice I'm joining my path here to be my end-to-end folder. The output directory is where we're going to store our test results. The web server provides instructions for Playwright to run your app before it starts the test. So here I'll pass it both the command npm run dev and the base URL, and then I'll pass in a few other things as well. A lot of this comes from the default Playwright installation here, but I'll use this use object to pass along the base URL. Finally, and perhaps most importantly here, I want to pass along an array of projects. These projects are simply objects that define which browsers you want to test against. Now, the last step is simply to run our tests. Let's start by not mocking the response and calling the Resend API. So I'll use my script call that we just created. It should download the browsers if needed, and then we'll run the tests and tell us if it passes. So let's do the second option here, where we comment out everything else, and I'll uncomment out this section where we're mocking the response. Now, like I mentioned earlier, in this case, we're not going to hit the API endpoint. We're simply going to mock what that would do. I'll run the script, and in this case, we should see the same result, that all of our tests pass. This second option tests just your application and doesn't impact your Resend quota, and for that reason, it's the one most people choose to use.